I'm Ron Reader, and this is Ron Reader Digs the Universe. Personal encounters with Mammon's minions. Ostensibly, capitalism is an economic system. I mean, it is, of course, in fact, an economic system, but it is an economic system which continually spends a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money, continually justifying and asserting itself as the greatest idea ever. So what this means is that capitalism pushes moral and social values which really have nothing to do with morality or society and everything to do with telling us all that capitalism is the greatest idea ever. In this way, capitalism, in addition to being an economic system, is also a religion. And let's name this religion. Let's borrow from the Bible and call it the Church of Mammon. In the Bible, Mammon was, in the ancient Middle East, a demon or a malevolent spirit or bad god of wealth and riches. Jesus referenced Mammon when he said, "You cannot serve both God and Mammon." And so with this, exploring capitalism as a religion, I want to get back with a theme that I was working with in my first episode, which is, what was it that changed me liberal from conservative? And if I can get that figured out, maybe I can turn other conservatives liberal. So keeping that in mind, let us then explore my early encounters with Mammon's minions. Encounter number 1, passing down from father to son, the mysteries of Reaganomics. 1985, fall semester of my senior year at Kingwood High School. I wanted to get an edge in extemp. Extemp, which is short for extemporaneous speaking, is a speech tournament event, competitive speaking that teenagers go to and, compete against each other. It is an event where you draw 3 topics on current events from a hat or envelope or something, and then you get a half an hour to write and memorize a speech, which, when that half hour is up, you go and deliver to a judge. And I was pretty good at this event, but I wanted to be better going into my senior year. I wanted to open up my game with some new material over which I had command. So I went to my dad, and he sat me down and he taught me the irrationalities and the exuberances of Reaganomics, or conservative economics, or neoliberalism, or maybe just because the Democrats have by and large embraced a lot of these notions, maybe it's just economics. Anyway, it was morning in America. Reagan was just starting the first year of his second term. My dad and I were conservatives, and we were both very excited about this material. We felt there was just some new, exciting stuff going on in the land, and Reaganomics promises some pretty amazing stuff. It's like, so cutting taxes on the rich results in higher tax revenue because the wealthy spend their money wisely, and that grows the economy, and everybody benefits. You cut taxes and you get more taxes than you started with. That's fucking amazing. It's remarkable. Praise Milton Friedman. Praise Maggie Thatcher. Amen. 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 Whew. I kicked ass in extemp that year. My new understanding of Reaganomics was such that I had the good news and I spoke it eloquently and persuasively. Understanding neoliberalism put me in the top tier of extemp speakers in the Houston area. My bullshit was nuanced and of the now. Good run that year. I ended up finishing in the national top 20, toward the upper end, 15th or 16th or something like that. I probably would have done better, except for the fact that at the national speech tournament, you just give speech after speech after speech after speech, and they're all on different topics. I don't even know how they found as many topics as they found. Reaganomics and the Cold War, my two specialties, they can only get you so far before you got nothing, and that's kind of where I ended up. I didn't break the top 10, but it was a freaking awesome run. I was a preacher for the Church of Mammon, and I was a winner. And I tell you, those are the days. Morning in motherfucking America. My daddy done taught me right. Encounter number 2. The priests of Mammon. So a few months after I had my father-son Reaganomics moment, my government teacher invited me and a few other students to participate in another kind of speech competition. The Rotary Club's 10 Pillars of Economic Wisdom speaking contest. There was a modest amount of scholarship money on the line. Looked pretty easy because this 10 Pillars document is basically a list of talking points, about the libertarian understanding of the way the world works, some of the ideas are true enough, others are just old wives' tales and folk wisdom, things we want to believe about how the economy works, TANSTAFL, the acronym that means there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. That kind of libertarian bullshit. It's not rocket science, and no problem. I could do it justice, give a really rockin' speech. Now, there was a catch to this contest, and that was that I had to go to a weekend seminar on the 10 Pillars contest, and at some woodland retreat, I don't know, somewhere outside of Houston. And this retreat ended up being, really nothing more than just a far right-wing indoctrinational event. They had actual far right-wing economists there to underscore the importance of the 10 Pillars of Economic Wisdom. And these economists, these priests of Mammon, they told me some pretty creepy and disturbing shit. One of them wanted to just straight up end the minimum wage because he was saying that it hinders job creation and that what we should really use is the labor market because it's always going to set the right and true value of a wage. And it's like, I followed the argument, and it's like, yeah, okay, that, sure, sounds right. But at the same time, it felt kind of wrong, if you do backbreaking labor, isn't it inhumane to reward that with a total pittance wage? No! Workers do better in the long run when there is no minimum wage. That is the word of Mammon. All right. But, it just got worse from there. The other priest of Mammon, this other far right-wing economist, he just fucking wanted to straight up default on the federal debt. And it's like, whoa, wouldn't that cause chaos and rioting in the streets? Yes, the priest told me, but it's the only way to end the runaway spending. The dude had a twinkle in his eye and a sort of cosmic smile on his lips as he was telling me all this, I was a conservative then, but not that kind of conservative. This guy was a fucking lunatic sadist. I decided in the end not to participate in the Rotary Club's 10 Pillars of Economic Wisdom speaking contest. That retreat left a pretty bad taste in my mouth, you know? I mean, was Morning in America really about poverty and chaos? And this Church of Mammon is a pretty mysterious church with some pretty weird ideas where poverty is abundance, chaos is stability, and Oceania has always been at war with East Asia. What's this shit all about, really? Encounter number 3, the Bacchae. In Greek mythology, the Bacchae were the drunken, crazed worshippers of Dionysus in the woodlands. Dionysus, of course, being the Greek god of wine and fertility. And sometimes these Bacchae would, in their woodland revels, tear the deserving limb from limb in a blood orgy of violence and abandon. Just check out King Pentheus, who suffered the same fate in the ancient Greek tragedy, the Bacchae. Now, the reason I tell you this about the Bacchae is because, looking back on it, it is the best conceptual framework I think that I can offer for understanding the summer I spent working at Oppenheimer and Company, a stock brokerage firm in downtown Houston. A few years later, in the summer of 1988, Oppenheimer was the fourth largest privately owned brokerage firm on Wall Street, which the brokers would always proclaim as they pounced on their prey. I mean, don't get me wrong, the true blood orgies, were and still are in New York City. We were just a local branch office, but that was the vibe. It was the purest expression of the Church of Mammon and Mammonism that I have ever found. These guys didn't give two shits about ideology or doctrine or explaining themselves or justifying what they were doing. They were all about one thing: pursuit of and union with Mammon, their god. Full devotion and adulation. Okay, there were some nice guys there, there were some total assholes there. Nice guys, assholes. But that was what they were as individuals. Collectively, these guys were the motherfucking Bacchae. The year before, 1987, Oliver Stone's film Wall Street came out, and these guys were gleefully celebrating the bad guy. It's like they would say to each other, hey, Gecko, nice work. Jay Gordon, yeah, yo. I was conservative, like I keep saying, but this was just really what the fuck. Gecko, the character, would throw thousands of people out of work with absolutely no remorse. So these Bacchae of Mammon, they were of a type that would not frown on you for selling your mother, your wife, and your daughter, as long as the price was right. I was grossed out by what I experienced there by the summer's end. I felt exhausted and dirty by my time, from my time at Oppenheimer. So I guess gazing on the unmasked face of Mammon was just too much for me. My conservatism was starting to get confusing. I was glad to get the fuck out of there and go back to school, where everything seemed a little bit more sane, less religious. So, in hindsight, looking back 3 decades, first with my dad passing down Reaganomics, it turns out that Reaganomics is the big load of bullshit that it appeared to be at the time. You know, the voodoo economics. It really is voodoo economics. Since that time, there have been numerous economic studies showing exactly what the rich do with their tax windfalls, and what they do is they just put it in the bank and sit on it like a dragon protecting his hoard. So you know, this whole thing about tax cuts for the rich, stimulating the economy, you know, it didn't work. Throwing money at the rich, it just does nothing, you know, except take money away from people who aren't rich, you know, and that's that. Nonetheless, the Church of Mammon, conservatives more generally, and even motherfucking economists who know better, they still embrace the idea. You know, they're still just like, well, yeah, we'll cut taxes. I mean, and when I said earlier, you know, that the Democrats had embraced the neoliberalism, you know, I mean, it's like fucking Obama was doing the shit when he first got into office. You know, a lot of the big bailout, you know, for the Great Recession was in the form of tax cuts for the rich, and it fucking did nothing because the rich don't spend their money wisely, you know, and conservatives still believe it. They're not going to let it go no matter what the facts are. I guess it really is a religion, huh? You know, that's religion for you. Don't confuse me with the facts. This is what I believe, and what I believe is right. And you know, moving into the woodland retreat with the Church of Mammon I had, it's the same thing with the minimum wage. You know, since then, numerous economic studies have shown that depending on how you implemented it, the minimum wage can have numerous economic benefits to the economy. And the same thing with the labor market this guy was pushing. The labor market, which sets the right and true value for a wage. This is flawed. The labor market as an idea, as an economic model, is based on incorrect assumptions, you know, that they're just embedded in the notion. And on top of that, big business routinely manipulates this labor market to their advantage. I mean, you can't just win. The labor market does not set the right and true value for labor. The labor market's all about fucking ripping people off. And, oh yeah, default on the debt psycho guy. Well, I don't even think conservatives give a shit about the debt anymore. You know, it's you know, don't get me wrong, there are still conservative sociopaths and psychos out there, but not default on the debt psychos. You know, they're psychos about something else. So it's gone. This you know, this whole watch your spending, you know, the deficit, debt. It's just not a problem to conservatives anymore. You know, it's like, you know, President Bush W, he spent a lot, so okay, we're not going to harp on that. And Trump spends a lot, so they're not harping on that. I guess, you know, it's a religious idea that was sacrificed to political expediency, much the same way that the Mormons dumped polygamy so Utah could be accepted as a state into the Union. And finally, looking back on the Bacchae of Mammon. Those guys now run the entire country because corporate capitalism since then has transmorphed into what they call financial capitalism, which is where basically the investors run the entire show. I'm sorry, it's not the investors, it's the investment bankers. They're in charge of everything, the entire freaking economy. And because these guys, these Bacchae with their blood orgy woodland revels where they tear people limb from limb, because they control the economy, they control the whole fucking country. They own the senators and congressmen. They own all the politicians. You know, we are ruled by a blood frenzy orgy culture. And, you know, we're living in a theocracy of that now. Mammon has become America's official state religion. And we run everything according to the precepts of devotion to to Mammon, bad god of wealth. I, in some ways, feel very lucky that I started questioning conservatism when I did. It was a couple of years before the rise of the brutal hypnosis of Rush Limbaugh and Fox News, which it doesn't so addle your brain that you can't think reasonably, I think. But having the, 24/7 drone of Rush and Fox, blah, 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 it makes it a whole lot easier, I think, to just avoid the troubling questions altogether, and who knows how that would have affected me if I'd maintained my true believer status for a few more years. I might not have gotten out, and maybe I'd be just as fucked up and crazy as they all are to this very day. So that's all. I'm Ron Reader, and this has been another episode of Ron Reader Digs the Universe. Please join me again next week, and I'll talk about something different on Ron Reader Digs the Universe.